hurt me no more. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, all right. So we're up and live. Happy Tuesday morning out there, everyone, everywhere. And I know Tuesday morning, usually a weird time, usually tough to get some live viewers, except all of our viewers, all of our subscribers, all the Jeromes, maybe aren't in the central time zone. We'll have a lot of Europeans in there. Also, I don't know, maybe just don't work. That's okay too. That's how we roll. Fire some questions into the group chat, the live chat on the YouTube. Also, if you want to make sure that your question gets answered, send in a little super chat, send in a little dough to the Ethel Show. Also, hey, do you remember the show Dinosaurs? Dinosaurs was great. All right, so we're going to do this back and forth. So we're going to talk about Packers. We're going to talk about playoff seedings for sure. But now, Dinosaurs TV show. Give dough. It was a great show. I got to bring it up. Yeah, oh, here we go. Yeah, this show. And, we can't show clips, otherwise, YouTube will yank us down, probably label as hate speech, but not the mama. And also the grandma's named Ethel. And I distinctly remember one episode where it was like a televangelist, and the song was "Give Dough to the Ethel Show." Don't ask me how I remember that. Give enough to carry home. Yeah, what is going on? But I'm fired up. Packers week is always a good time, especially with a lot on the line. Although, this isn't as clean cut as, hey, Vikings win here, you win the division. That would be the case if the Vikings had taken care of business week 2. But, a lot of things went wrong week 2. The Vikings, of course, giving up 21 points in the first quarter. And then also the Dalvin Cook offensive pass interference call. And then, of course, Kirk Cousins just pulling that big boner right in the end. So, which, can't do anything about that. But also, if you look at the Packers at Lambeau, and yes, I remember last year in the Week 2 tie, the Clay Matthews pretty questionable roughing the passer call kept the Vikings alive and kept the Vikings able to stay in that game and then eventually tie it. But also, this year, the Packers were supposed to lose at Lambeau against the Lions. $10 from Yui Tolles. Shout out. Love the love, babe. It's cool. The Lions were supposed to beat the Packers at Lambeau. Now, let's take a look here. And production value. There you go. All right, so the Lions were supposed to beat the Packers. It ended up just being 23-22. But, the refs just were carrying the Packers over the goal line like DeMarcus Ware and that Denver Broncos defense carrying the corpse of Peyton Manning over the threshold when the Broncos won the Super Bowl, and Peyton got his second ring. Okay, people forget that Brock Osweiler went like 6-2 during the middle of that season because Peyton Manning got benched because he was hurt. Yeah, but then also. That Bears game last week was extremely suspect, especially that Cordero fair catch call. Come on, get out of here. Also, double screw you because Cordero, I still consider hashtag one of us. And of course, the Vikings won. We know, we know about that Dalvin call. So it's pretty questionable. Things have been going on. And yes, the Packers are 11-3. Your record is what it says you are. But also, they haven't been too impressive. They struggled in back-to-back weeks, just barely beating Washington, barely beating the Bears at your place. And now you go on the road for these 2 games. I actually expect the Vikings to whoop some ass Monday night. I do expect that to happen. I think the crowd's going to be super into it. US Bank Stadium. Also, remember, if you're a Viking season ticket holder and you sell your tickets to Packers fans, you are excommunicated. You will be put on an ice float on Lake Superior and left to die. That is all. It's not my rule. Tim Walz signed into effect. Governor Walz. There. And then also, I just think that this Packers team is one-dimensional. I think they'll be disposed. I think they're terrible on defense. That defense has really regressed in year 2 under Mike Pettin. And also, the Vikings are going to have a lot of emotion. And also, they are tentatively playing for the division, although they do need some help. I don't know if the Packers will lose to the Lions at Detroit Week 17, except weirder things have happened. This is the National Football League. All right, so a couple questions in the chat. Planet Zay, if you're Zimmer Spielman, what would you do about the cornerback situation? Well, I would for sure cut Rhodes That frees up $8.1 million in cap. I would re-sign Mac. I think that would be a huge priority. Trey Waynes is going to be difficult because he is a free agent. He's playing on his 5th-year option. If he leaves, you're likely going to be in line for a 3rd-round compensatory pick in 2021. And also, I think just because of the market rate in free agency, I think Trey Waynes will get massively overpaid. I think he'll probably get $10 to $11 million per year. I don't know if the Vikings want to pay that. But then, Mike Hughes, the rehabilitation project, I still believe in Mike Hughes' talent. I think Holton Hill, if he can stay out of trouble, will be perfectly fine. And then also, let's see here. Are we good to go in the wireless? There you go. Yeah, it says that we're not streaming very smooth, but yeah. But also, just going after it in the draft for cornerbacks, as you don't have to tell Zimmer or Spielman that twice. And the free agent class. I mean, do you go after a Darius Slay? I don't know. I think it was rather telling that the Vikings didn't even put in a waiver claim for Janoris Jenkins because the Saints ended up getting him. They were 26 in the waiver order. The Vikings were ahead of them. So if the Vikings would decide, hey, we'll pick him up, although with the cap space and also with putting in the claim, you do have to pay off the remainder of his contract this season. I sort of understand. I do. Omar Saliso, why haven't you been to US Bank Stadium yet? Yeah, I've been there. I went to a preseason game, then went on one of those private tour things. Yeah, that's fine. But on game day, like we've talked about on here, I much rather prefer just being in the studio, watching the game, watching other games, sweating my fantasy teams and my stupid for entertainment purposes only bets. It's a good time there. And then also, I mean, the bathroom is 10 feet over there. I don't have to share the concourse with 300-pound Packers and Bears fans, which is always nice. Yeah. Not that I'm fat shaming. It's more team they're rooting for shaming. Yeah. Let's see here. Ting Yang, sick Cook for the next 2 games for a playoff run. It wouldn't be insane because the Vikings, for all intents and purposes, are locked into the 6th seed. I mean, the Rams loss. If the Rams lose on Saturday night, I believe that guarantees the Vikings a playoff spot. So, yeah, there are scenarios where theoretically they could get the 1 seed. They theoretically could get the 2 seed. But also, for all intents and purposes, even if they beat the Packers, they still have to depend on the Packers losing to Detroit. The Vikings still have to beat the Bears week 17. So, I mean, that could be up in the air as well. Is it a spot where you're scoreboard watching week 17? Well, I don't think Dalvin's going to play on Monday. I really don't. I think that there is some credence to the Adam Schefter report that he doesn't expect Dalvin Cook to play the last 2 weeks of the season. So I would sit Dalvin against the Packers. Let Madison, hopefully that ankle's healed up, as well as Mike Boone take care of things. And then week 17, if you do beat the Packers, or when you beat the Packers, rather, I would dress Cook, but only if he's almost 100%. And then also, if it's you're scoreboard watching and say the Packers are blowing out the Lions, it looks like it's not going to be your day, even if you do beat the Bears, then I would rest Cook up and then get ready for that wild card game. Likely going to be at Green Bay, which, yeah, bring it on, baby. All right, let's see what else here. Joel Geis, great channel. You're the best Jerome around. Shout out to Joel. You're the man as well. Matty Mac, thoughts on Chris Boyd shining on special teams? Yeah, he has looked really good on special teams. He's great as a punt gunner, getting down there, downing some punts. I wasn't overly impressed with him as a cornerback in preseason, but of course you're going to have that. You're a rookie coming in, but I don't know. Give him another year. Maybe he could develop into something. He certainly isn't on the potential level of like a Holton Hill, but he's stuck on the roster for a reason, and I guess don't count him out. ACJ, I choose you over the live Pat McAfee show. That's serious. That's awesome, and that's also high praise, but also major respect to Pat McAfee. I mean, he's a guy who retired from the NFL. He certainly had a couple more years left in him. I mean, you look at like how long Shane Leckler punted, and you turn that down just to get into the media game, which I respect. Going after something you're passionate about. If he's taking care of his money, he should be set for life, and he's a funny dude. He's pretty hilarious. So big respect to Pat McAfee and crew out there. Let's see here. Nene Bosk. Daniil Hunter going to make a Raj call him daddy. Yeah. And then I just called the Yankees my daddy. I love Pedro Martinez. I'm just trying to think. So I'm like a casual baseball fan now. I used to be like really hardcore into baseball back in the day. I love baseball before football. But I was just thinking about like full on dominant pitchers for a hot second, where they didn't have longevity, they didn't have that massive career, like they didn't have a Greg Maddux-esque type career where they were great for nearly 2 decades, but just came in, burned out hot. Like I guess you could put Pedro in there, Pedro Martinez, except he was really good for probably a decade plus. Johan Santana, unfortunately, you could probably put him in there. Like once he went to the Mets, it was over. It was kind of finito. Kerry Wood, I mean, for sure you could put him in there. Let's see what else. Would you say Verlander? You might say Verlander. I don't know. And then Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw, the Peyton Manning of pitchers, but yeah. All right, so enough baseball. Baseball bores me. DJ Vizkiller makes me upset we didn't go after Janoris Jenkins. You look at the teams, blah, 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 blah. I think that the main thing with Jenkins wasn't so much that he used the R word. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. But I think it's because if they claimed him, they would have to pay off the final 2 weeks of his contract, which, let's see here. Because he signed a pretty big contract with the Giants, 5 years, $62.5 million. I want to know how much that would have been, because the Vikings only have about 600, 700,000 in cap space. All right, so cap hit. Yeah, so the Saints are taking on 1.194 million in dead cap these last 2 weeks. So the Vikings would have had to move things around to even make that happen. And also, this is the reason why they didn't put in a claim, because he is actually no, I got that wrong. Because he actually has zero dead cap in 2020, but he does have 11.25 million cap hit due to him. But again, none of that is guaranteed. None of that is dead. So, I mean, that certainly changes the calculus a bit. But I mean, it is what it is. Turtle, I think Packers will focus on neutralizing Cook, so give him limited plays and start Mike Boone and Madison if healthy. If Dalvin is anything less than, say, 90%, I would sit him. Or do you dress him, except you start Madison and Boone? Could that be it? And if you really need him, strap it on. Let's go, babe. Yeah. Let's see here. Reflections asks, how's it going? You think there's any chance of AP coming back to Minnesota, like on a visit? I mean, he probably has kids here. Probably not, even though you do have to respect what he's doing in Washington, because he has 1,000 yards this season, doesn't he? PFR, Adrian Peterson, as he just continues to find work, which is really good for him and his dependents, because he kind of needs that cash. All right, so right now, so he has 784 yards as my light. All right, so full disclosure, like behind the scenes, I have one of my light rigs. I haven't bolted it onto the wall yet, so it is teetering on this chair that my dog always sits on underneath a blanket. And so, like, every time that the dog moves, which isn't much because he's a little bit older, it like shifts the light. So if you see the light going back and forth, that's why. All right, so he ran for 1,000 yards last year. Respect. He's got 784. He's got 2 games left. Can he get 226 in these final 2 games? You got no Geis. I mean, maybe. But like, you look at Frank Gore with Buffalo. Like, if you can provide a service, if you can be good on first and second down, short yardage, I mean, you could find work, especially if you agree to take the league minimum, which he is doing. Let's see here. SoCal native, SoCal. Jerome checking in. Shout out. Longtime OG Jerome. Love you, man. Let's see here. Jesse laughing at us. Can we please just say Rhodes is hurt? Yeah, I mean, we're going to do a video on Rhodes again tomorrow because, I mean, it's a hot topic and also, people enjoy talking about. But also, besides the erosion of the skills, I actually think that there is something like physically wrong with Rhodes. Like, I don't think he's actually been right since last year. I think it's just a collection of all these random physical ailments just coming home to roost. And some guys, I mean, just weren't built for a collision sport. And maybe that is Xavier Rhodes. Let's see here. What else here? Russ Chapman, top 3 draft needs, in my opinion: cornerback, defensive tackle, OG. Pretty much agree. I think Elflein has really leveled off in terms of he has stopped being ass, but that doesn't mean that you're not looking to the draft and trying to replace him. Because I am team BPA. There are a number of positions that do need some freshening. Cornerback, 3 tech for sure. Offensive tackle, the Vikings move on or restructure Riley Reef. They need to start looking towards the future. But also on the interior, you got Drew Samia. I guess you could say at tackle you do have Oli Udo, who you do like his potential enough that you rostered him on the 53-man roster because you didn't think that he would clear waivers and get on the practice squad. So respect there. But also, I would like to see a quarterback in day 1, day 2. A. Clinton 14. Abdullah was a second-round pick for a reason. Yeah, because the draft isn't a perfect science. Let's see here. Dustin Shelton, did the Vikings take Tua in the later part of the first round if he slips? That is a really interesting question, and I think it's a question that a lot of teams are going to be faced with come draft time. Whether it be a team that is drafting late, a playoff team that is towards the back end of the first round, or a team that does need a quarterback and has thoughts about trading back into the back end of the first round and taking a flyer on Tua, where I don't think Tua is going to play next year at all, which is actually fine. Man, that hip does scare me though. But it's a lot different. Pick 30 or late 20s pick versus you're gambling on him in the top 5 or top 10. Yeah, so I would take a shot on him. I do believe his arm talent. I think he's got great soft skills. I believe in his accuracy, and I think he does have a shot to be that freaking dude for a team somewhere in this league. And if you can get him at the back end of the first round, you get him on a cheap rookie deal. You have that 5th-year option. I think that would be all be gravy. And so say the Vikings win the Super Bowl, I would still take Tua. Yeah. Let's hear. Joel Geist, if I like Boone's ability, are we fine if Madison or Cook can't go this weekend? I would be, in terms of teams that you're fine with their third running back, I would be okay with Mike Boone as well as Amir Abdullah, just like a combo platter there. Now, someone brought this up. It would be nice to have Kari Blasingame still in the mix, where you could bring him up as a fullback / running back / special teams hybrid guy, but that ship has sailed. He's actually on a playoff team with the Titans. Let's hear. Matthew Robinson, what opportunities do we explore to get more pressure in the middle of the trenches? Is there any way to get more exotic with our blitzes? Well, I think I think you are seeing it. Maybe not in terms of exotic blitzes, but in terms of personnel that they're putting in. Because you'll notice on most third downs, like they're playing 3 to 4 defensive ends, where you're kicking in a Stephen Weatherly and a Fadio Dendabo inside. You even have Everson kicking inside occasionally as well, where they just don't have any defensive tackles that they trust to get that sort of pressure on the interior. So you do have guys playing out of position, as it were, even though Weatherly and Odenabo have held up very well on the interior this year. That's unfortunate because you thought that Jalen Holmes, hey, he could be that guy. Hey, Armon Watts, who they don't give the time of day, I think he could be that guy eventually. Or Hercules Mataafa. I mean, that experiment has sort of gone south real quick. And I think you look at Shamar Stephen, he is what he is. Same thing with Jaleel Johnson. I think they're both fine, like swing backup hybrid guys. But, I mean, they're not going to be world beaters on third down. I mean, they're just not going to be. So I think that's certainly a spot where they miss like a healthy Sharif Floyd. That's where they miss a Sheldon Richardson, and it's a spot that they need to address in the draft next year. Nick Papadopoulos. Buy tickets for this Monday Night Football game against Green Bay, or hold out and hope for a playoff game in Green Bay /mini. Just go Monday night. I think the atmosphere is going to be electric there. Primetime game, Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. It's going to be hyped. It's going to be a great experience. So head out there. Reflections S, thoughts on if they put Rhodes at linebacker? Well, we we did a video a couple weeks ago on why it would be dumb to move Rhodes to a safety because he doesn't have the safety skills. I understand, like he's 6'2", he's got long arms, but he's not the tackler that say J-Ron Curse is. Like he's fine for a cornerback, he'd be poor for a safety. Doesn't necessarily have the range either at this point in his career, so I actually don't think that he would be a good fit at safety at all. And also, the Vikings have two great safeties in Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. You want to take one of them off the field, or you want to replace J-Ron Curse, even though he's dinged up at the moment? Yeah. And also, he'd have to take a massive pay cut, and his ego would not take that. Just wouldn't work there. Dennis Saris, any chance Stafford plays Week 17? Soon to be fired. Patricia has not put him on IR. I guess there's a shot. And Matthew Stafford, respect. He is a competitor. He doesn't want to get out there. So I would be fine. I mean, I like David Blau, bling bling Blau, but also we know who's starting. Kyle, Jerome, Ezekiel, Sluter. It's got to happen. Let's see. Henry Hackbush. Could the Vikings possibly draft TJ Vasher from Texas Tech since Treadwell didn't work out? I haven't really done a deep dive on draft prospects yet. Like I know the highlights. Yeah, I know like most of the first round guys, but draft season will be coming up very soon. I just saw that they're doing Senior Bowl invites, and where it's like, oh, it's really starting to be time, isn't it? Yeah. Matt, 1998, worried about OBJ going to Green Bay? Nah, not really. I feel like Green Bay, like they've changed their stripes a little bit, and Gutenkunst, you have to say his name very carefully, has gotten away from the Ted Thompsons, like, oh, we don't pay free agents. We don't do that. And like they opened the bank for Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. That's worked out pretty swimmingly. Also, they massively overpaid for Billy Turner, but, whatever. But I don't see them pulling the trigger on the big-time trade like that. Although, pairing up OBJ with very solid wide receiver 3, Devontae Adams, that would make a nice little combo. I just don't see it happening because I remember the Packers were in, and they had an extra first-round pick on the Khalil Mack Derby, and they blinked, they decided not to go all in, and then Khalil Mack went to the Bears. So I think that I think they're still a little gun shy about the blockbuster trade. I don't really see it happening. So not too worried about it. All right. Omar Salcido. Jalen Hurts to the Vikings on day 2. I think Hurts might be our first-round pick. I really do. Where at Bama, he was seen as much more of a running quarterback, kind of limited in the passing game. Perfectly fine college quarterback, just wasn't going to translate well. Like maybe they move him to tight end and do all that jazz. But Lincoln Riley is the QB whisperer. Because he's at Baker and Kyler, and now Jalen Hurts is making big-time NFL throws out there, which is great for him. And frankly, with grad transfers now being the free agency of college football, like every single quarterback with a heartbeat should want to be finding their way to Norman, try and be the next dude that Lincoln Riley gets drafted in the first round. Because I actually think Jalen Hurts probably goes in the first round. Yeah. Traveler, thoughts on NFL changing to NBA-style lottery draft? I think it would be good for TV, but also sort of meh on it. Also, I don't want any spot where it could be rigged. Yeah, because we all talk about tanking. It's like, oh, the teams are tanking. But it's extremely hard to tank because, yeah, you can fill your roster with bad football players, except all those bad football players want to play well on Sunday. They want to win. They want to put on good tape for their next potential employer or their new potential employer. Same thing with coaches, so whatever. So for a team to actually tank, it would have to take such a concerted effort. It'd have to be ownership assuring the GM that, hey, we know you picked a bad team, but tank so you can get the number 1 pick. Even though your player evaluation skills are questionable right now. And then the GM would have to assure the head coach, like, hey, you can put up a bad season, but I won't fire you. And then the coach would have to be like, okay, I buy into that, and I'm going to tank. No, it just doesn't happen. Reflections S. Where do you rank Calvin Johnson, Megatron, in all-time receivers? That's a good question. Actually, let's pull up that list. Because I got to look at the yardage list. Because top of my head, number 1, Randy Moss. Number 2, Larry Fitzgerald. Number 3, Chris Carter. Number 4, some jabroni who was a system wide receiver with the Niners. I forget his name. All right, so PFR all-time receiving list. Because Megatron, like, he didn't have longevity, and he retired young because the Lions are morons. All-time receiving yards list. All right, there we go. No, damn it, that's not what I want. I don't want receiving yards per game. I want career receiving yards. Go. There we go. Technology. All right, so I'll put Randy Moss 1, Larry Fitzgerald 2, Chris Carter 3, the system jabroni wide receiver from Oakland and Denver and Seattle number 4. It's actually kind of tough. I think I'd put Marvin Harrison 5. It's a little bit controversial. Megatron, man. It's tough to place Megatron because, actually, it's not too tough because, where's Calvin Johnson on this list? All right, so he's 31. So he's behind guys like Derek Mason. He's behind guys like, Hines Ward's pretty great. And no disrespect to Derek Mason, but, he was an accumulator. He had a nice long career, was a very solid receiver, and he just accumulated a bunch of yardage. And same thing with Brandon Marshall. But Megatron, for a number of years, was the freaking dominant wide receiver in the NFL. Like, he was either top 1 or top 2 at his position for 5-6 years. Sure. All right, so just looking at his career numbers, he didn't play long. Like, he retired when he was 30. He led the league in receiving twice and also set the single-season receiving yardage record, 1964 and 2012. Man, I mean, this entire stretch here was just sheer dominance, and he was always priority 1 for every defense coordinator that came in, 3 straight All-Pros. I mean, you just can't F for them, right? So, it's sort of like when we were talking about Hall of Fame last week. I weigh short-term absolute dominance and brilliance over long-term longevity. Where, Derek Mason, again, no disrespect to Derek Mason, fabulous career, it's awesome. But him having more career yardage than Calvin Johnson, that doesn't. I don't really care. I mean, Derek Mason was a great wide receiver on the Ravens as well as the Titans, but also, like, was he ever top 5 in the league? I mean, did you ever game plan around Derek Mason? No. Again, it's not disrespect to him. It just have as an example. Whereas Megatron, every single game, you knew where 81 was going to be. You'll likely just run in 9 routes because he ran 2 routes. But all right, back to the stream. We'll do a couple more of these, and then we'll bounce out of here. I see we're coming up on 30 minutes. Blake Kettler. Andy, love the content. Keep up with that hate speech. Super chat, Blake Kettler. Love you, man. All right. A couple more of these good questions. Nathan Sheeter. What do you think happened with Hercules? Is it he was too small in the middle, or is it his technique? I think it's a little both. I think he is a project that Andre Patterson is going to mold. Also, I think he's a little bit too light at this point, even though he did bulk up to 275 to be an every down 3 tech in the league. And also, I think it is just matchup dependent. Like they don't see the use of him. Also, Weatherly and Odenabo stepping up in the middle. That certainly doesn't help his case as well. Let's see here. Matthew Robinson, with our offensive line being so athletic, having the ability to get out in space, is there any way we would be better if we ran more hurry offense? Seems as though Kirk could make change no problem. I could see it. Now, you don't have to go full-time no huddle, hurry up, a la Jim Kelly and the K-Gun. But I think having that in the bag, or even, just start the game with it. Just rock things a little bit. Or first offensive drive of the second half, just shake things up a little bit. And I know you have to get it by a conservative head coach like Mike Zimmer. But Zimmer should see it from the point of a defensive coordinator. It's like, what would annoy you a lot? Oh, you have this team with an athletic offensive line, a team that plays well out of two tight ends, out of 12 personnel, and their tight ends, aside from Rudy, play like wide receivers. That would be annoying. And also, if it's hurry up, defenses can't substitute because they don't have time, right? And also because the offense isn't subbing either. So, I mean, I would go after it. Let's see. Henry Hockbush, love the channel. Big Vikings fan all the way from Texas. Keep up the great work. Shout out Texas. Love me some Texas. So there's a couple spots where the wife and I have talked about is like if we ever moved from the great state of Minnesota, which I don't know if we will, although this weather is sort of bumming me out yet again. Like I've been through 32 Minnesota winters, but last winter kicked my ass, man. It may just be getting old. It may just be that last winter was just atrocious, like -50. Like, I don't remember -50 as a kid. Maybe this global warming / global cooling stuff has a point. Oh, by the way, global warming, it's great because any deviation from 70 and sunny, you can add to your argument. It's like, if it's hot, global warming. If it's cold, global warming. If it's rain, global warming. If it's snowing, global warming. It's great. I understand the argument for it. What are we talking about? It would be like Nashville. It would be Texas, Central Texas, because we like Austin, Waco, San Antonio, that area in there. And then also, I mean, I really love LA, except the traffic, the cost of living, it's not great. And also like the homeless problem that they have out there, where going down some political rabbit holes. Like, if you truly want to help those people, I mean, leaving them out on the streets and doing all that stuff is not helping them. It's not helping anyone, but it just makes you look good. But sure. So here, a couple more, and then we'll bounce out of here. Well, we should just go deep on like the homeless problem as well as global warming. We could do that. Yeah, it's really gonna get this channel flagged for hate speech again. Jesse Laughing House. February 1st, put down $100 to win $3K if the Vikings win the Super Bowl. Can cash out now and get my $200. Well, you could double up your money now if you can get a buyout, or I assume if someone's buying your ticket or whatever, or just let it ride. I mean, if the buyout was $500, I would think about it because, I love my team, but also I love winning $400 and making a very hefty ROI on my investment. But if it's just $100, just let it ride. There you go. Ted Vick, last question. Of all the impending free agents on defense coming up, Mack, Harris, Waynes, etc., who, if any, do you see the Vikings resign? Well, I think Anthony Harris is priority number one. I think he's shown his worth on the back end, as well as Mack Alexander. I put him up there. I think Weatherly is going to be a luxury that the Vikings can't afford, because I think he will get paid starter money. I think he'll go somewhere else and be a fabulous starting defensive end, so respect there. And also, I think the emergence of Fadio Denebo will help cushion the blow of letting Stephen Weatherly go. And then also, who's out there? Oh, Jaron Curse. Except Jaron's interesting because, remember, he still has that DUI loaded gun thing hanging over him. So I actually think that's going to impact his free agent market, because I think he's going to be facing a suspension beginning of next season. So I actually think that the Vikings could keep him around on a relatively cheap deal, sort of like a 1-year prove-it deal. And then if he plays fabulous, he bangs it out in free agency, which gets his money a year later, which is fine. All right, so that's it. That's a Tuesday morning. What are we calling this? Tuesday morning QB live stream. Oh, Traveler at the gun, $5 in the super chat. Not rich, but happy to toss shekels towards the production value. Jerome Washington, bless you and your fam. Bless you, man. It's a great time of year. We got our freaking border battle on. It's a holiday season for a reason. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone except for Packers fans. JK